from Srebrenica to Gaza, remembrance, denial, and the double standards of international justice. 11 July 1995 went down in history as the date marking the start of one of the largest mass killings Europe has witnessed since the Second World War. In Srebrenica, which had been declared a safe area by the United Nations, more than 8,000 Bosniak Muslim men and boys were systematically killed after Bosnian Serb forces captured the town, whilst approximately 25,000 women, children, and elderly people were forcibly expelled from the area. The International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia and the International Court of Justice ruled that these acts constituted genocide under international law. The United Nations General Assembly, in a resolution adopted on 23 May 2024, designated 11th July as the International Day of Reflection and Commemoration of the 1995 Srebrenica genocide. Nevertheless, the Serbian government and certain leaders of the Republika Srpska in Bosnia and Herzegovina waged an intense campaign against the resolution, claiming that it stigmatized the Serbian people. Yet the text of the resolution did not state that Serbs are perpetrators of genocide. Rather, it called for the remembrance of a genocide established by international courts at a specific time and place. The problem here lies in the notion that a nation's honor can be safeguarded by denying the crime. In reality, the way to protect a people is not to equate the criminals who emerge from that people with the entire nation, nor to turn those criminals into national heroes. Yet, to this day, pictures of war criminals are painted on walls in Serb communities, and their names are given to student halls of residence and streets. Court rulings, meanwhile, are presented as a conspiracy. It is no coincidence that the denial of Srebrenica still occupies a central place in the political crises facing Bosnia and Herzegovina today. Separatist rhetoric, attempts to disregard state institutions, and the trivialization of past crimes are all part of the same political discourse. Last month's meeting between Netanyahu and Jelika Cvijanović, the Serb member of the presidency of Bosnia and Herzegovina, is a depiction of this. During the meeting, the flag of the Serb entity was prominently displayed, whilst the flag of Bosnia and Herzegovina was not shown. It was no coincidence that the Israeli side described the Serbs as true friends of Israel, a deliberate political choice to engage with the separatist faction rather than recognizing Bosnia and Herzegovina's state identity. Indeed, Cvijanović herself, who attended the meeting, is among those who deny the Srebrenica massacre, just as Netanyahu denies the genocide in Gaza. The connection between Srebrenica and Gaza. Definitely, Srebrenica and Gaza are not one and the same. The historical context, military structure, geography, and legal processes are different. However, there are common questions that necessitate a moral and political comparison between the two events. When does the international community take notice of mass crimes? At what stage does the systematic dehumanization of a people require intervention? How many people must die before the courts take action? Can commemorating genocide be meaningful whilst remaining silent in the face of ongoing mass killings? In December 2023, South Africa filed a case against Israel at the International Court of Justice under the Genocide Convention. The court has not yet issued a final ruling on the merits of the case. However, in its provisional measures orders issued in 2024, the court found that the rights of Palestinians protected under the Genocide Convention were plausible and ordered Israel to take measures to prevent acts that could constitute genocide, provide humanitarian aid, and preserve evidence. The case is ongoing as of July 2026. The UN's Independent Commission of Inquiry, meanwhile, announced in a legal analysis published in September 2025 that it had concluded that the Israeli authorities had committed genocide in Gaza. This finding should not be confused with the court's final judgment, which has not yet been delivered. In November 2024, the International Criminal Court also issued arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and then Defense Minister Yoav Gallant on charges of war crimes and crimes against humanity. None of these developments, taken in isolation, constitutes a conviction for genocide. However, they collectively undercut the notion that international criminal justice cannot be applied to Israeli officials. The similar rhetoric used by Israel's supporters and Serbian deniers. Some of the denial tactics employed regarding Srebrenica are also evident in the debates surrounding Gaza. The first tactic is to obscure the nature of the crime by disputing the death toll. In Srebrenica, claims that fewer than 8,000 people were killed were used to downplay the mass executions. In Gaza too, whilst every death statistic is subject to debate, civilian lives as a whole are squeezed into a numbers game. The second method is to label all victims as potential combatants. In Srebrenica, it was claimed that all the men killed were soldiers. Yet the courts established that children, the elderly, unarmed individuals and surrendered prisoners were systematically killed. In Gaza too, the automatic classification of civilian men as combatants or the reduction of child deaths to the rhetoric of unavoidable collateral damage creates a similar mechanism of dehumanization. The third method is to explain the perpetrator's actions solely by the opposing side's prior crimes. Bosnian Serb nationalists presented the Srebrenica massacre as revenge for Serbs killed in surrounding villages. The Israeli government and its supporters, meanwhile, present all their actions in Gaza as a necessary response to the 7th of October 2023 attack. Meanwhile, under the laws of war, one party's crimes do not grant the other party the right to collectively punish civilians. Hamas might have attacked and taken hostages, but these do not place the people of Gaza outside the protection of the law. The fourth tactic is to portray legal criticism as hostility towards a nation or a religion. Those who defend the Srebrenica ruling are labeled enemies of the Serbs, whilst those who criticize Israel's actions are often branded enemies of the Jews. Anti-Semitism is a real and dangerous form of racism. However, automatically equating criticism of the Israeli state's policies with anti-Semitism undermines both the rights of Palestinians and the fight against genuine anti-Semitism. What is true remembrance? Commemorating Srebrenica is not only about laying flowers at the cemetery, it is about preventing the process leading to genocide from being repeated against other peoples. For this reason, the anniversary of Srebrenica should not be viewed solely as a day of accusation directed at Serbia, but rather as a day on which the UN must also scrutinize its own failures and the political calculations of major powers. The same standard must apply to Gaza. International law loses its universality if it becomes a tool to be used only against the West's rivals. If war crimes committed by Russia or Serbia are punished, whilst those committed by a Western ally are presented as a complex security issue, confidence in the courts will collapse. Never again should be said for everyone. The question frequently posed to the international community in the context of Srebrenica, "Where were you before the massacre began?" should also apply today to Gaza, Sudan, East Turkestan, Myanmar, and other parts of the world, waiting for events to run their course, for mass graves to be opened, and for trials that can take decades before recognizing a genocide defeats the very purpose of the obligation to prevent. Of course, the most honest way to commemorate Srebrenica is not to blame the entire Serbian people. It is to oppose the politics that glorify convicted criminals. The way to be fair regarding Gaza is not to equate all Jews with the actions of the Israeli government. It is to argue that state leaders are subject to international law. Justice is not revenge, nor is it the collective guilt of one people against another. Justice is the application of the same law, regardless of the identity of the victim and the allies of the perpetrator.